Hey there, and welcome. You know, when you look around at a butterfly's wing, or even just think about the human brain, it's just so complex, right? It feels like there has to be a master design. But what if it was all just a big accident? That's the paradox we're diving into today.
And that really is the question, isn't it? How can something that's supposed to be a random accident create all the beautiful, complex, and, well, intelligent life we see everywhere? It just doesn't seem to add up. It feels like a total contradiction.
And you know what? That's a completely fair question to ask. It's not simple. It's this huge puzzle that pulls in science, philosophy, even our own search for meaning. So to really get into it, we have to start with probably the most misunderstood word in this whole conversation: random.
Okay, so this is super important because it changes the whole game. When a scientist says random, they don't mean chaotic or just a total mess. All it means is that there isn't some pre-planned outside intelligence pulling the strings. So it's less like an explosion in a junkyard making a car and a lot more like shuffling a deck of cards. The order you get is unpredictable, sure, but it's still happening within a set of rules.
All right, so now that we're on the same page about what random means, science has this really powerful two-part answer. Let's think of it like a team. You've got the engine, which is creating all the new possibilities, and then you've got the architect, which is deciding what to build.
So on one side, you have the engine. This is the random part. We're talking about things like tiny, unpredictable little typos in our DNA, genetic mutations, or even huge things like an ice age that nobody saw coming. This part is just throwing stuff at the wall. But then on the other side, you have the architect. And listen, this part is anything but random. This is natural selection. It's like the world's toughest quality inspector. The environment relentlessly selects what works for survival and just gets rid of what doesn't. It's a super strict filtering process.
But there's a secret ingredient here, the thing that makes this whole engine and architect thing work. And that ingredient is an absolutely insane amount of time. We're talking over 3.5 billion years. With that much time to play with, even the tiniest little changes, the smallest advantages, can build on each other and eventually create the kind of mind-blowing complexity we see today.
Let's take a look at a classic example, the eye. I mean, how could something so complex be an accident? Well, it didn't just pop into existence. The thinking is, it started super simple, maybe just a few cells that could tell the difference between light and dark. Hey, that's an advantage, right? Then maybe a random mutation made those cells dip into a little pit. Now you can tell which direction the light is coming from. Even better. Then the opening gets a little smaller, like a pinhole camera, and suddenly you get a sharper image. Then a clear layer forms over the top for protection. See what's happening? Each little step is a random change, but every time one of those changes gives a tiny survival boost, it gets selected and passed down, building and building over millions and millions of years.
And this really gets to a super important point. Evolution isn't trying to be intelligent. It's just creating things that are fit. That's it. Things that just happen to work well in their environment at that moment. A great way to think about it is a river carving a canyon. I mean, some canyons are absolutely gorgeous. They look like they were sculpted by an artist. But they weren't, right? They were just shaped by the simple, relentless law of water flowing downhill over rock for a very, very long time. Nature is kind of like that river.
Here's another way to picture it. It's like a lottery, but on a cosmic scale. Every single day for billions of years, life is buying billions and billions of lottery tickets in the form of mutations. Now, almost all of them are losing tickets. They're useless or even harmful. But every once in a while, one of them is a winner, a jackpot. And natural selection, that's just the process that spots that winning ticket, cashes it in, and makes sure the winnings, those good traits, get passed on to the next generation.
Okay, so that's the scientific picture. And it's really elegant, it makes a lot of sense. But for a lot of people, it can also feel a little incomplete, you know? It does a great job of explaining the how, but it doesn't really touch on that deeper human need to understand the why. And to explore that, we need to shift gears a bit, away from science and into the world of philosophy and spirituality.
From this point of view, the incredible order and complexity we see around us isn't an accident at all. The idea here is that it's the result of a conscious, intelligent force. Now, people might call that force God, or a cosmic mind, or something else entirely, but the core belief is the same. The sheer beauty and intricacy of life is proof that there's a designer behind it.
And a big piece of this perspective is something called the fine-tuning argument. It's a fascinating idea. It basically says, look at the laws of physics, the strength of gravity, the charge of an electron. All these fundamental numbers seem to be perfectly, and I mean perfectly, dialed in for life to exist. If you changed any of them by just a tiny, tiny fraction, none of this, stars, planets, us, would be here.
So the question becomes, is that unbelievable precision just a lucky coincidence?
And this way of thinking is definitely not new. If you look back at many ancient wisdom traditions, you'll find that our ancestors often saw the universe not as a bunch of random, separate things, but as one single intelligent, connected system. They saw the whole universe in a single atom. This idea that everything from the smallest particle to the biggest galaxy was all part of the same grand integrated structure.
So we've got these two very different ways of looking at the world. One says random process plus filtering. The other says intelligent design. How on earth do you put those together? Well, maybe we don't have to. What if they aren't actually competing answers? What if they're just two different lenses for looking at two totally different questions about the same reality?
Think about it this way. Science is all about the mechanism. It's focused on the how. Its job is to take things apart, see how they tick, and describe the physical processes. How did the universe begin? How does a cell divide? It's all about mapping out the machinery.
But philosophy and spirituality, they're exploring the meaning. They're asking the why questions. Why is any of this here in the first place? Is there a point to it all? What's our role in this story? And those just aren't questions you can answer by looking through a microscope.
So when you put them side by side, you can see how they might actually fit together. Science asks, how did this happen? And uses observation and experiments to figure it out. Philosophy asks, why did this happen? And uses reflection and deep thought. One is focused on the process, the other on the purpose. They're not fighting, they're just looking at existence from two different angles. So in the end, this whole paradox of design versus accident, it isn't really a problem to be solved with one neat and tidy answer. It's really more of a profound mystery. And maybe that's the point. It's a mystery that keeps us curious, that makes us wonder, and that pushes us to keep searching for answers, whether we're looking through a telescope or just sitting quietly and thinking. So, I'll leave you with a question to chew on. Science explains the how. Philosophy asks the why. Which question really drives you? As you look at the world, what are you more fascinated by? The incredible mechanics of how it all works, or the deep, profound search for why it's here at all? There's no right answer, of course. In fact, maybe the most beautiful part is that asking both questions is what makes us human. Thanks for tuning in.